Hey there everyone, I'm Jeff. This is Tabletop Toolbox, and today I wanted to do something just a little fun. I wanted to do an unboxing video of this, my newest all-in pledge of Joyride Turbo. This came to Kickstarter sometime last fall, and it just came in recently, and I was really excited to check this one out. So excited that I opened it, and I organized it, and punched it all, and I played it, and then I thought, oh, I was gonna do that unboxing video. Crap. But hey, you know what? I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to do this anyways, even if it does become the worst unboxing ever. All right, so usually in these unboxing videos, people open the box from scratch, right? Cut off the shrink wrap and punch out all the components and kind of show you what all is in there. I've already done some of that, but that's okay because now what I can do is actually give you a little bit of an explanation of the rules and even maybe share some of my initial thoughts on the game. So let's go ahead and get this on the table. I've got a little camera up here above, and hopefully you guys will be able to make all of this out okay. So I'm gonna pop the lid off of this quite large box. Also lots of yellow. We've got a couple of boxes inside, my favorite of course being the toolbox. It's a toolbox. That's very exciting. I thought that was pretty neat. We also have a garage box, and then down here in the bottom we have a whole bunch of tracks. I'll actually show you these just real quick first. So we have, I don't remember what they're all called. There are three different two-sided boards. I'm going to save that one for last. This one is, I believe, the crash course or the dirt course, whatever it is. You can see very, very colorful boards, hex-based spaces. We've got these black outlines of spaces you can't go to. Those are kind of off limits or out of bounds areas. Here in the backside is, I'm not sure which one this is, maybe the warehouse or something like that. And I'm not sure what all these symbols do yet. I haven't used this board quite yet, but you can see just how large and colorful these boards are. They look really nice. Let me pack this one back up. We'll also then get over here to this is the zoo. Okay, here we go. This is the Wonder Zoo. And you can see again, just very, very large decorative boards. On the back side is a volcano. And you can kind of see here, so this is the volcano space. I haven't played this one either, but I kind of skimmed the rules on it, and lava actually sort of spreads across here, and you've got to try and navigate around it as you're playing. There's also some jumps. I'm not quite sure how those work yet, but they look pretty neat. Again, just really neat looking boards. And then we've got the test course or learning course, kind of like driver's education course is what this is supposed to be. This is a smaller board, only a 4-panel as you can see, but you've got some crash test dummies here. This one's pretty fun looking. And on the back side, this is the warehouse board. And again, I'm not sure what all the icons on these do. So let me go ahead and break into some of the components. I'm going to start off with the toolbox itself. And this thing has not 1, not 2, not 3 or 4, but 5 different rule books. Now, that seems a little daunting. It's really not that bad. This blue rule book is the core rules of the game, teaches you how to play. And it seems like a lot of text. I'll be honest, when I first read this, I was a little concerned, but it is actually quite easy to get through. It tells you how to handle, obviously, your turn structure, tells you how to handle various items and equipment, how collisions work, gives you a whole bunch of examples on what can happen in various car crashes, special effects, driving abilities, so much more. A couple of variants, some tips on making your own tracks, and then on the back is a rule summary. This isn't the only rule summary. There are also some player aids, which of course is fantastic. Each of these other rule books, I'm not going to go into all of them in really any detail, but they cover some of the extra expansions. Now, I believe that this Survival of the Fastest is actually the base rule book because these 4 cars are actually shown in the blue rule book. But this thing shows you what all the different cars are, of course, gives you some basic items, your additional components for your initiative tracks and all that kind of good stuff. This kind of runs you through what each of the cars do, gives you just a quick summary on, what they're able to do, maybe some of their additional setups, stuff like that. This is covering your various items, and I'll show some of those. I'll show you some of those in a moment. Here's some additional examples, jumps, explosions, more crashing. And then each of these will go into a handful of sort of scenario tracks you can set up. They'll give you recommended player counts, recommended laps, difficulty, some, maybe unique setup suggestions and such, so on and so forth. And that's basically what all these have. So this one's got the next gen has the electric car and the learner car. Again, shows you how those work. More items, more specific instructions for some of these maps. This is kind of explaining what this defense grid and these spaces are. And again, more track setups. The Turbo book, I believe, has this is the Pirate Van, the Safari 4x4, and the Taxi. Some additional vehicles. These ones also add, I believe, there's like these kind of weird animals that can come up. There's a beetle gator, and I believe in here was it this one? That had, yes, the Hippaboon, whatever that may be. So anyways, these are, again, just more track suggestions, a couple more items, so on and so forth. Let's get these out of the way and dig through just some of the components. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail of the toolbox. This is your initiative track. Now, everything in the game is sort of two-sided, so you can use, a full color side, or if those colors are a little too intense for you, you can sort of switch over to this more basic, less contrasted side for your graphics, which is pretty neat. These are called rainbow bridges. You can use these to combine different maps, actually connect two different boards together to build really large boards. I don't know what these magnets are. I don't know what this is, but in here we have all of the various loot items. So here's a couple of mines, and I'll kind of just show these again very, very quickly. So these are items you can get in the game. You've got oil slicks, gum traps, mines, and spike strips. These are dropped from the back of your car during your turn. And then these are kind of the tokens you'll set along the side of the board to keep track of what they do. These are the actual components. There's a couple different ways that these can come out into the game. You can either place them on the board face down, showing this loot side, and then you can just pick it up when you drive over it, kind of like Mario Kart. Or you can have checkpoint spaces. So these are the actual checkpoints, and I'll explain how these work in a moment. But you'll see that you can set them up so they kind of point to each other to indicate what the checkpoint is. Or you can flip them over, and they'll do the same thing, except for they also then have this little black hex space, and that's telling you that when you drive through that checkpoint, you can claim a loot container from a separate stack on the side of the board. So that's how those work. And those are the dropped ones. Here are ones that get fired. We have a rocket, we have a harpoon, and there's another one in here that probably slid away, and I stood the box on its edge. And then in here we have deployed units, or not deployed, these are activated. And we have airstrikes, energy drinks, delivery drones, nitro, and anchors. The anchor can actually be used to kind of slow yourself down a little in a controlled manner, which is kind of clever. So let me put all those back in here. And here you got more of the checkpoints. This is some of the lava pieces from the lava track. Here are some obstructions that you might kind of run into, just extra things you can put out on the board to add a more varied course. These are your damage tokens. Here's a couple other loot items. Looks like that fell down from somewhere. And there's a mine and a few other things. These are those animals I was telling you about. And then these here are your driver ability tokens. Each player will get one of each of these, the Precision Driving, Gear Master, and a Handbrake Turn, or you can use the ones that come specific to your cars, which I'll show you in just a moment. Let me put those away. I'm going to keep out the initiative tracker. I'm going to keep out just a couple of... there it is. All right, that should be enough. Let's go ahead and jump over to the garage box, because this is the fun part. The garage box stores your player aids, as I was mentioning. These are two-sided, so you have turn sequence on one side, collision instructions on the other side. And then these are all the different boards for your cars. Now, as I mentioned, these again are two-sided. So you kind of have the high contrast, high color side, and then you have this sort of back side that simplifies things down a little bit and also shows you some illustrations of your vehicle and your initiative token, just, for kind of a reminder. Let's stick these off to the side for now. Each vehicle comes with, again, its own set of driver abilities specific to that vehicle, an initiative token, which is also two-sided, a wooden car that is also two-sided, and you can see it kind of matches its symbology on its initiative token. Also, those same symbols are present here on your driver aids. You have 5 dice specific in colors to your car and a gear shift knob. And we've got the electric car, the learner car. I believe this is the junker. You've got the, is this the 6x4? What is this thing called? The off-roader. Okay, well, that's more simplistic. Here's the hot rod. Here's the muscle car. This is the pirate van. This is the Safari 4x4, and this is the Taxi. And I really do like these cars. I certainly do wish they were kind of Hot Wheels, but I really love the way they look. I love just the big chunky wood pieces. I do actually like that there's no real excessive plastic in this game. I mean, besides some shrink wrap, everything is wood or cardboard. Very, very colorful, very, very nice looking. Really, really neat presentation. So I'm gonna grab just kind of one of the cars here, and let me grab all the components of the electric car, because I've driven this car before and it was kind of fun. I am missing a token though. This thing's got a little shuffled here. Oh no, there it is, slid underneath the organizer. And let's grab the muscle car, just a piece, and we'll put these back. And I think that's good enough. So I'm gonna just give you a very real quick recap now on kind of how to play the game. All right, how do you navigate this course? How do you control your cars? I think you'll find, well, maybe when I was sort of setting this up and reading the rule book and looking at all the different dice and all that kind of stuff, I thought, gosh, I sure hope this game isn't a bunch of random chaos. And it's actually really not. There is some good agency, really, really good agency, I think, that players have over their car and their, just how they move about. So first of all, I'm going to set up a starting checkpoint. I'm going to make this really, really simple. All right. So I'm going to set a starting point that is here and here. I'm going to set a second spot, which is going to go from here to, actually, I better go here. So what you can see is here's my starting spot. Here is my second checkpoint, and basically some part of my vehicle has to touch this imaginary line between these two checkpoints for me to have advanced that checkpoint. And if I wanted to add the third or fourth or fifth checkpoint, I can't get to 3 until I've at least touched or passed through checkpoint 2. You'll start off the game with the front of your car along this line, and each player will start off in second gear. You'll roll 2 dice, and you'll simply move the spaces shown. Perfect, here's 2. So 1, 2. All right. Your turns are divided up into 5 steps, and I know that seems like a lot, but literally the first step is make sure your dice are on the rearview mirror. That's it. So that first stage is doing just that. Usable dice are on your mirror. Then what you're going to do is you're going to lock any number of your dice that you want into these lock spaces on the side of your board. And you can lock as many dice as you have spots for, as long as they're not damaged, as these damage indicators, as you gain them, can be placed, your choice, over top of these spaces to kind of lock them out. So right now I've got everything open. I'd have my dice locked. I'd have gone my 2 spaces. Start of my turn, I put my dice in the rearview mirror, and let's say I decide to just lock one of them, all right? So I'm gonna lock 1 die, and I'm gonna move the total of all the dice that I locked. Well, that would of course just be 1 space. Then what I do is I choose if I want to shift. I can shift up a gear, down a gear, or stay in the same gear. I can shift down 2 gears to engine brake, but I would take a damage, and again, place it anywhere I want on my board. Let's say in this instance, I decide I'm going to go ahead and shift up to 3rd gear. Now, at some point here though, I need to turn. You can kind of see that I'm heading towards the edge of this board. Now, you can always turn in the lock stage, that second stage of your turn. You can also turn in this roll phase, the 4th phase of the turn, if either you didn't turn in the lock phase or if you are now in second gear, whether you stayed there or shifted to second gear, you have a chance to turn again. Now, since I didn't turn in that lock stage, I have the option to turn now. But since I've shifted to third gear, well, I still have one die left here on my rearview mirror. That's 2 dice, so I get a third die. It gets placed on the rearview mirror. I now have 3 dice for my third gear, and I would roll any dice that aren't locked on my board. So I roll a 4, 3, and a 1. Since I get to turn, I would turn like this. I would choose a spot 60 degrees in front of my vehicle, move the front of the vehicle in that spot. The back of my vehicle follows into the previous spot. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So in just that move, I've managed to make a turn, and I'm just about to get through my second checkpoint. When I were to cross the checkpoint, as you can see from these spaces, I'd actually be able to collect one of the loot pieces if I was using them in the game. The last step of your turn literally is just returning all of your locked and rolled dice to your mirror. What's kind of nice about this is that you can then choose which dice you want to lock in the next turn. So if you've got a couple 2s and 3s, you can sort of hold on to those dice. You can try and keep those higher numbers and have a little bit of finesse, a good bit more control in how you move your vehicle throughout the track. Now, real quick, I'll talk a little bit about some of the player powers. For example, the muscle car has an ability. It's not one of these 3 that you can see here on my board, but when you would use an ability, you would typically flip it over to show that it's locked out. The muscle car has one that lets it basically pivot on the front of the car, almost like doing a burnout or an e-brake slide, whatever. The electric car has an ongoing ability. It actually has an energy drain, a small token that sits here on the board. And every turn, you're going to lose an energy, basically 1 space of movement from either the locked dice side or the mirror side. You can pick at the start of your turn by flipping this reroute power token over to either side. This one does not actually get locked out to you. It's always in effect. You just get to choose which side you're draining that power from. And that actually makes this car very flexible. It means that, yeah, I can lock in my dice, but let's say I had a 2 and a 3, and I really wanted to keep that 2 and 3, but 5 spaces is a little further than I want to go. So I can drain the power from that lock side, move these over here, treat that like a 4, move 4 spaces instead of 5, holding on to those higher dice, and even possibly holding myself into a higher gear, which again is going to keep me a little faster throughout the course. And I really had a lot of fun with that sort of tactical play. And you can also sort of set this up in a way that you're very, very rarely actually rolling your dice. Yes, you can, of course, have bad rolls in this. The other good news is that the dice only go from 1 to 3. 2 1s, 2 2s, and 2 3s. So you're not going to have, someone rolling a bunch of 6s and you're stuck rolling 1s and you just kind of get left behind. We have found that this game is still quite competitive and can be very tight. It's fairly easy to recover to some extent. Now let me kind of real quick cover how crashes work. The nice thing with crashes is that typically when you hit other vehicles, you don't actually damage them unless you hit them in a certain way. Let me first I'm going to grab one piece out of here, just so I can show you this real quick. I'm going to kind of recap a previous playthrough that that my wife and I did. So my wife, on her first turn, let's say that this was the starting spot. Let me also make sure that this is all visible in frame. So my wife had put her car right about here. And yeah, it's about right. And I came in from this direction and I hit her car. And the way the game works is that you kind of pivot it as you work through these spaces. So we ended up like this. I'd spun her car around 180 degrees. Because of that, then I made a turn. And I turned it like this, and I turned it like this, basically doing in my my roll in my lockstep, whatever it was. I spun her all the way around. And so then what she had to do is on her next turn, she had to shift down in the first gear. She had to basically voluntarily not lock any of her dice, shift down in the first gear, and back her car up so that she could kind of get herself back on through the on the track. Now the nice thing was she didn't take any damage, although when she did her reverse move, she rolled too high, smacked into the edge of the course and took a damage. Never got more than 2 damage on her vehicle, and it wasn't really that much of an impact. She kept all of her gears functional. She actually locked out one of her one of her item spaces so she couldn't pick up any equipment, and then locked out one of her locked dice spaces, but still had plenty of movement throughout the game. And that's basically Joyride. There's, like I said, there's a lot of items. There are missiles that you can shoot. There are these, like I said, the mines and gum traps and such you can drop behind your vehicle. They're challenging to try and navigate around, but they add a lot of flair to the game. In fact, there's an oil slick space that if you actually put cleverly onto the board, you can actually use it to help force yourself to take extra turns, actually kind of allow you to make some extra maneuvers in the game if you can use the oil slicks to your advantage. And that's really kind of neat. As I mentioned again, I like the dice rolling, or I like the dice manipulation. I like the fact that you don't have to constantly roll dice. It's not as random as a lot of these other racing games that rely on dice. You do have a lot of control over how you're making your moves. I do like that the courses are just really, really colorful. There's a ton of variety. I mean, everything that's in this box lets you build tons of different courses, kind of whatever you want to do. My only slight concern might be how crazy and hectic this game gets if you have the full suite of 4 players, especially on sort of a tighter course like this. You're probably not going to hit the higher gears as often. You're not going to get the spread out as often. You're going to have a lot more collisions, a lot more sort of unpredictability. You may find yourself in a high gear, but completely just spun the wrong way, and you're going to have to either take a lot of damage or waste a lot of turns going the wrong direction before you can get yourself back on the track. But other than that, we have quite enjoyed this. Like I said, we've only played it once. I was really surprised at how well it worked. My wife didn't do that well, but still admitted that she really, really liked the game. My daughter had an absolute blast with it. And even more interesting was that it was a very, very tight race between my daughter and I. She was able to play with some real tactical edge at only 11.5, and I was also able to use this electrical car to do some really clever things and taking corners very, very neatly and just trying to be very competitive. So that is Joyride Turbo, and that is possibly the worst unboxing ever. Thanks for stopping by, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again soon. Cheers.